I am Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, and this is placement game number 1 for the Axes. I did not think I was going to record this simply because the Russian opener was kind of weird, so I just assumed that this was going to be a pretty big blowout game, which it kind of was to some extent, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. So the Russian opener they went with was buying 8 infantry, and what was weird was they did a West Russia only attack with 15 guys, which the game decided to punish them for it, very surprisingly, because I mean you would expect this to be in like a 9-12 Ukraine West Russia attack, and it going badly, losing 5 infantry, but that's not what they did here. At any rate, so Russia kept their tanks in reserve. It doesn't really, I don't think it really matters where they were because they ended up getting blown up in the end anyway. I did pretty standard play. I decided to switch out 2 tanks, or 2 infantry for 1 tank, just to get some extra hitting power due to the Russians losing extra men. Combat was pretty standard, except I decided to go for a West Russia attack. Based on what was left, I should have had like a 96% chance to wipe that, but we'll talk about my opener because the combat was absolutely ridiculous in the sense of not because I lost battles, but for how long the battles took to win. Karelia was fine. Transjordan was fine. C-Zone 10, that's just a duel, so, it was a lot of back and forth. But the surprising thing was C-Zone 7. This took 5 rounds of combat to kill everything here. And the battleship missed the first 3 rounds of combat and then was the only one that hit in the last 2 rounds, or last round of combat. Or actually no, I think it was it hit in the 4th round of combat and then missed in the 5th round of combat. And then West Russia was just absolutely ridiculous. These planes they did not hit at all. Like I sent 4 fighters and a bomber with the other stuff that went in, and it was just I guess it was just, I don't know, it was bad. It's really, really bad. Anyway, UK, nothing too overly weird except for the submarine. They took this New Guinea. They had, if I remember correctly, they attempted to take Borneo and it failed. So we wiped that stuff out on Japan's turn. Japan's turn was, I went with a conservative play because I was expecting a KJF based on these 2 moves right here, Borneo and New Guinea play. So I decided to go ahead and buy 2 subs just in case. It turned out to be a pretty good idea. And then just, I did some standard stuff, taking Barry and hitting some of the usual things. I mean, anybody who's played this game has a pretty decent idea of what Japan goes for. Usually, these territories that I'm highlighting in green here. So America's purchase was 3 fighters, 1 bomber. So they definitely were committing to a KGF, but they were going about it in a weird way. So normally, whenever you see the U.S. buying bombers, you can have like an idea that it's going to be a green skies kind of thing, and as we can tell from 6 bombers here in Iwo and the 3 here on the west coast, it kind of was green skies. Normally you would expect green skies going on where they're just sitting here in the UK and bombing all of our German industrial complex to shit, but not in this game. Nope. This game was some kind of different green skies. At any rate, round 2, the Russia, they decided to go for no combat, which, based on what they had on the board at the time, was actually probably a pretty good idea, because they were kind of lacking on infantry on the front line, so they needed to get stocked up. Actually, they might have been better for them to just go full infantry this round. That I'm not 100% for sure on. I'll just be honest, I'm not the best Russia player. But at any rate, yeah, it was pretty simple. Germany round 2. I bought 1 tank, 8 infantry, and 3 artillery. Yet again, the idea is that at the time, the Russian army was looking pretty weak, and so I wanted to keep the pressure on. Combat was we took Egypt because the British had backed out turn before. They put their guys down here in Sudan. We took Archangel, West Russia, and I had to retake France since Britain had decided to take it with their transport, and they dropped a fleet on top of that. Usual thoughts on that is you only really attack a British fleet if you have overwhelming numbers. I definitely wouldn't do it if, you know, it's like 5 guys versus 5 planes. I mean, it's just, if it goes poorly, I mean, you're definitely just done at that point. Britain's round 2, they decided to buy a transport, 2 tanks, 2 infantry, and a bomber. So they were kind of adopting this green skies idea as well. But the way they went about it was they had little tiny stacks of guys, and they would just send in a crap ton of planes to, you know, attack whatever was where. Their combat was they retook Transjordan, which I had left to pile into Egypt. They took Finland, and they were pushing out because where my Japanese turn had been kind of piss poor, to be honest with you. I lost quite a few guys in round 1, and with the U.S. doing a KJF, buying guys is kind of risky. So you got to be a little conservative with your Japanese movements. Japan round 2. Purchase was 1 fighter, 1 submarine, 2 infantry, and a destroyer. As I was saying, we had confirmed that it was an odd style of KJF. So, you know, our only way to really defend that is submarines and destroyers. But where I had prepped for it in round 1, I had a little more flexibility in round 2. Combat was pretty uneventful. Just destroying standard things. The thing that sucked about this is we wanted to take Iwo back because the Americans took it round 1, and we sent in 2 infantry and 2 artillery versus 1 infantry, and it took 7 rounds of combat to kill this one infantry. But they had also stacked a fleet in 59, and I wanted to destroy that. I don't understand why this fleet was put in 59. I'm guessing the idea was to get the Iwo Jima result that they got, but you would think that with 4 guys rolling on 2s, you would at least get 1 hit on the first round of combat, not it taking 7 rounds of combat to win. Alright, we'll keep moving. I want to kind of make this a short video. U.S. purchase, pretty uneventful. Since I sunk their fleet in 59, they were just ramping back up, continuing the bomber buys. They got a couple submarines and a new transport because I killed theirs. They didn't really do too much else. Round 3. Russia, 4 infantry, 3 artillery. Pretty good buy. Never a bad idea. They had finally got their infantry stacks up, so getting more artillery was a good idea. Combat was just retaking West Russia and retaking Archangel. Pretty standard plays. Alright. Germany round 3. I bought 1 tank, 2 artillery, 11 infantry. As all of you know, Germany is pretty much a numbers game. You definitely want to keep your infantry numbers up because you have to normally do quite a bit of trading. Just a school of thought from me. You'll notice that this is round 6 and I had 8 infantry in France. Normally, there would be a lot more infantry in France, but where America was not really pressuring me too hard, I mean, you can see round 6, they only have this stuff in Finland, which normally you just ignore this whenever it gets taken, but I didn't have to have like massive infantry stack in France of like 16 guys to prevent, 1-2 punches or whatever the Allies end up trying to do. So the idea was just start funneling everything toward Russia, which ended up being pretty successful considering where the board is currently. UK round 3. Well, actually, I'll cover my combat real quick. So the British had decided to try to defend Sudan here with 4 guys, an artillery, and a tank. But I had, if I remember correctly, it was 3 artillery, 4 infantry, and a tank, which we routed these guys pretty quickly and took all of Africa. And then, of course, as you can see here, they sent some guys from India to try to deal with that, but I don't think we're going to be finishing this game because, well, I mean, we are going to finish this game because it's a ranked game, but it'll probably be finished by default, to be honest with you. Okay, UK round 3. They bought 1 infantry and 3 fighters. I think this buy was bad. That's my personal opinion. By this point in the game, Britain didn't really have too many land units per se. I mean, they had 7 planes here and a bomber in India, and they were doing a pretty good job of keeping my my Japanese stacks at bay. I kind of just had to use Yunnan as a buffer zone and just keep my stacks out of India's range. So they ended up taking this area right here. I never got it back, as you can see here, but that's fine. I took all of Africa, so it was a decent trade-off, I think. Like in KJFs, you have to kind of understand what you can do and what you can't do. And usually, if you're under heavy KGF pressure, you just need to be really conservative with what you do. Kind of just pick a spot, hold your ground, and try not to let too much stuff come at you at once. And if you're picking battles, you know, you want to be coming in with extremely superior numbers, because you want to anything you attack, you want to try to wipe it out first round of combat for sure. Uh, so their combat was, you know, pretty standard, what you would expect from UK. Japan round 3. I bought 3 infantry, 2 submarines, a destroyer, and an artillery. Where we had wiped the 59 fleet, I had a little bit of flexibility to buy some land units, so I went ahead and took that initiative, and combat for that was um, pretty standard, nothing too out of the way. Like I say, I was using Yunnan as like a buffer zone. Whenever the UK would send guys, I would just wipe it and turn it into a just a blocker, really, just to keep myself out of range of the planes. It's not really safe for them to land planes here, because you can just pick up like all these guys and drop down here and hammer wherever they land. So it's not safe. Like India is the only safe place to land a bunch of planes. You're at US round 3. Their purchase was 1 bomber, 1 fighter, 3 infantry, and 2 artillery. Obviously, that was for their transport they bought the round before, and they're continuing their green skies idea. Definitely keeping me at bay is Japan. I mean, as you can tell, I can't really do anything. I have to sit in 62 and 61. Their combat was taking Iwo again, and after this, I wasn't going to be taking it back. I just didn't have the ability to hit this and keep this under lock and key. You have to also learn to pick your battles when you're in a KJF. It's sometimes really difficult. And also every now and then you end up with a thing where you have to take battles you don't want to take, because like you'll see like at some point in the game, obviously the US will stack 59, and you might have like 50-50 odds on it, and then, you know, if your Pacific area is collapsing, sometimes you just have to take a battle that's not very good in order to try to stay afloat. Because like the longer you ignore um, the 59 play, or wherever they end up putting it, whether it's 64, 44, 47, it just kind of depends. Everybody does KGF a little bit different. And then of course, you know, the dice also kind of decide the differences in the map as well. Round 4, Russia. They purchased 5 infantry, 2 artillery. Pretty standard combat. They decided to, where my Pacific area was collapsing, they decided to move in, take some territories. Not really sure I would have done that, but it is what it is. They retook Archangel. Germany round 4. 1 tank, 10 infantry, and 2 artillery. Yet again, in my opinion, a good buy. As I say, we want to keep up pressure on Russia with the idea of stacking West Russia or moving to the Caucasus, depending on how you're wanting to go about things. Combat. I pretty much this was the turn I pretty much completely took all of Africa. I retook Transjordan, took West Russia, took Archangel again. Doing some pretty heavy trading with the Russians. Where there wasn't too much pressure from the UK. They I killed a couple of their transports because I guess they didn't count my bomber's range very well. Um, it's easy to miss bombers, so that's understandable. UK round 4, 2 fighters, a tank, and a destroyer. I'm not even really sure why they deployed a destroyer down here. It's kind of like a pointless idea. Honestly, it probably would have done them better to have it up here, but whatever. They're amassing planes. Combat. They retook Transjordan. Since we've been we're having a big fight over Africa, which is always good when you're the Germans. You want to control Africa, but you also don't want to put like a absolute crap ton of resources into taking Africa. It's just one of those things that if you can take it, it's good. If not, okay. Usually it ends up being easier for Japan to take this, to be honest with you. Because once Japan takes India, you can pretty much just use India as your funnel to send stuff straight into Africa. Okay. Japan round 4. 3 destroyers and 3 infantry. Now the idea I had with this buy was the US had put another fleet in 59, and I decided to attack that with a stack of subs and 2 destroyers. So you'll notice that I decided to take 2 destroyers as losses. I had brought 5 submarines to this fight. And the reason I took the destroyers as losses was because at this point the U.S. had amassed an absolutely ridiculous amount of bombers, so the destroyers just weren't safe here at all. It just there was no safety. So anything that planes can kill, it had to die, which is sad, but we got a lot of profit off this. We destroyed the new transport they built, and quite a few guys. I mean, it was definitely a battle worth taking for sure. And then everything else is pretty standard. Keeping Yan'an as our blocker to keep the UK out of India, or not out of India, but out of the Pacific, and so on and so forth. Round 4 for America. 1 destroyer, 1 submarine, and 2 bombers. Now they're really ramping up the bomber buys. In fact, the destroyer and the submarine will be the last 2 naval units they buy, unless this game continues for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why it would. No combat, so we'll skip that. Russia, round 5. Purchased 6 infantry and repaired 2 damage to their complex, since I've been doing some bombing as the Japanese. I don't normally do bombing raids, but if I don't have any use for the bomber in a round, then doing a bombing raid is just a decent idea. The thing to keep in mind is, if I remember correctly, you have like an 84% chance to survive a bombing raid. Of course, that doesn't really mean anything. I'm sure you like I have ran into instances where you just get destroyed on the first bombing raid every time, and you end up just getting a mentality of you don't like doing bombing raids. Combat, they retook West Russia, which will be the final time that they retake West Russia, because I'm about to stack the absolute crap out of it. Purchases for round 5 Germany. 12 infantry, 2 artillery, 1 tank. The idea of this buy was I wanted to have maximum production, so I ended up where we controlled all of Africa. We had a lot of money to spend, and we just filled all 15 slots, and that was where the numbers that it ran out to be. Okay, so combat. We took the final territory in Africa. We took the Caucasus using the battleship and the transport, which the U.S. or the U.K. had not killed, but they were going to try to kill in the very next round. And we destroyed a transport and a destroyer in Sea Zone 3. The reason that was possible was for some reason the UK had backed off their fleet to 2. I don't really get this play. Personally, I would have left my planes on the aircraft carrier, and well, I mean, also this destroyer that's here should have been deployed up here, and that way they would have had Sea Zone 3 pretty locked down, but whatever. Okay, UK round 5. Continuing down the fighter buys, which I think at this point in the game was kind of pointless, especially considering that at this point I'd killed 2 transports. So they bought an infantry, 2 fighters, and a tank. And I think most of that was deployed down here. I'm not 100% for sure. We can look real quick. Yeah, most of it was deployed in India. Their combat, they took Egypt, which, as we can see that from the round before. They took Yan'an again, and they Sea Zone 16, which is absolutely, like, this is an insane battle. I've never seen this where the battleship kills both a bomber and 2 fighters. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, you would not expect that. Normally, if you've played Germany enough, you take Transjordan, your battleship's sitting in 17, the UK sends 2 planes and a bomber after it. Usually the battleship's killed first round of combat, and they take the bomber as a casualty if you get a return fire. Alright, Japan round 5. I bought an aircraft carrier and a fighter, mainly because at that point we had an absolute crap load of bombers sitting on Iwo Jima. I wanted to keep Sea Zone 62 safe, and I thought the best way to go about that was to have a stack of destroyers, some aircraft carriers, and at the time an equal number of fighters to their bombers. That way, if they decided to attack the Z Zone, I could take destroyers as casualties and murder all the bombers. Combat, where I had stacked West Russia, there was a lot less flexibility of what the Russians could do. So I was able to take quite a few more territories. And our blocker plan in Yan'an was still going pretty good. USA round 5. Really ramped up the bomber buys this round. They bought 3. Combat was the Caucasus. They tried to send 1 fighter to kill 1 guy, and it didn't go too well for them. And Russia round 6. Russia was pretty squeezed, and They repaired complex damage. Just a note. I don't remember how much complex damage was originally here. I'm assuming it was 9 based on these two numbers here, but I don't think he needed to. Well, actually, yeah, he probably did need to do 6, I think. Or he might have done 1 too many. You only repair industrial complexes enough to deploy whatever you're deploying. There's not really a point to repair more points than you're going to deploy. Not unless like the bomber's dead and you have some extra money. I mean, then it might be a good idea. It just probably depends a little bit. So Russia decided to go for a attack on West Russia, and it went very badly for them. But I had already calculated this out. With what was in there, I had about a 98% to hold, and I'm guessing they decided to take it as a Hail Mary fight, or they were looking at how many guys they had, and they thought they might be able to kill what was in here, but they just did not have a good time. And yeah, that's how we got to the map looking the way it currently is. I expect that later today, either this guy will forfeit, or maybe he'll finish his Russia turn and we'll continue playing. If so, I think the course of action I will adopt will be taking Russia, and then I'll come toward India full tilt with Germany, making sure I keep the UK at bay up here. I might even be able to drop a navy here in 5. We'll have to see. The way the board looks right now, navy in 5 is looking pretty nice. Should be very easy to do. I can kill these transports by maybe 2 aircraft carriers, move my planes to the aircraft carriers. I might have to pull out of Karelia for a turn when I do that. I'll have to run the numbers on this to see if we can hold this. The thing I'll be trying not to do is I want to keep maximum number of troops heading toward India. So we'll have to see. It'll take me a couple turns to knock this out, but when I move these 3 infantry to here, I deploy 4 more. We'll have 10 tanks to start moving down that direction. I mean, it's just a matter of time before this falls. I'll be killing this as well, because with my transport still alive, I can just pick up these 2 infantry here. Attack this with all that material. I'll use the bomber as well to just completely annihilate this, or if at least not annihilate, kill all the land units, which that works with me because they're a couple turns out from getting anything else in here. Obviously, they'll kill the transport when I do that, but with full control over Africa, we really don't care. And the game's almost over as it is anyway, because if we look at the war report, I have about almost a 50-point lead. So we're doing pretty good here. Doing pretty good. I expect this game to be pretty much 100% over. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the game. I do apologize that I don't do it. I didn't do this game the way most people record these, but we'll look into that in the future.